Morning. The past month or so, Jessica, my wife, and we've been considering doing a little project on our house, getting a new heater and installing a central air conditioner in preparation for next summer, because this summer was pretty hot. So we've been getting some estimators coming out and looking at our house and giving us some price quotes and things like that. The price is going to be pretty high, and so we were considering different quotes, and one of the things that makes the price pretty high that we saw is that the estimators called them Big Brother. The city of Fremont wants some hand in the installation of these things. So not only do we have to pay for a permit application, but it's possible that after paying for all that, it'll get rejected, and then we have to do more work and pay even more. So it kind of puts a big question on things. This whole process has been, I don't know what we're going to do yet or not, but through it I was thinking, do we really need the permit? And these guys are saying we could do it without the permit. But I was like, I didn't really feel total peace in my heart about that. And so I was talking to God. I was like, Lord, this seems like a waste of money. Don't you say to be wise with money? Is that being a good steward? And I feel the devil saying, who is the city of Fremont to tell you what you could do on your property? And not only that, but you have to pay them so they could say yes to do it. And so I was going through this human reasoning in my mind. A lot of times we can do that when we have something that we really want. We'll overlook God's word and start to question it and reason with ourselves. And so logic can sometimes, we can make it sound like a really good argument for an excuse not to do God's will. And so I felt in my spirit, my flesh is questioning these things, but in my spirit I really know I got to do the right thing. It's the law. And so God says submit to authority. I'm pretty sure I know the right thing to do. And so if we do this, I don't know if we're going to, but then I have to do it the right way. And God is, then after that, since then, God has been putting peace in my heart about the decision, saying things like, it's better to sacrifice some money and do God's will than to be, in the world's eyes, wise and hang on to all this extra money. It's better to trust God with the sacrifice of, in a sense, it's almost like we're giving to God if we have to spend extra money to do his will. I believe, in a sense, it's almost like that. Because it's so easy to just hold something back for ourselves and do things a little bit the wrong way, and nobody in the world would say, oh, you're evil. But in God's eyes, I'll never be able to have peace every time we turn on the air conditioner or heater again. I'll say, I'm sorry, Father. What's wise in God's eyes is not the same as what's wise in the world's eyes. And it reminded me of the story of the widow. I was thinking about this. Jesus said that the widow who gave the mite in the temple, she only had 1 or 2 pennies left, and she put them in the offering box in the church. Jesus said she gave everything she had to live on. And I was wondering, is that really wise? Like, I don't think I would tell, if somebody only had $200 in the bank or $100, I don't think I would tell anybody in this church, give it to the church. Like, I would say, keep it, buy food. But I was thinking, was that wise? The Bible says even in Proverbs 6 that like ants were supposed to save for the future, but this woman, she gave everything, and she didn't care about being wise with her money. She's like, I just want to live for God and give to him. And so she didn't have an emergency fund of 5 months salary or whatever. She didn't have anything. This Bible said she gave everything she had to live on. And Jesus honored her so much. She wasn't being wise in the world's eyes, but she was just giving her heart to God, and maybe being a little foolish in the world's eyes, but she wasn't foolish in God's eyes, and that's the thing that mattered. That gave me peace about the whole situation. If we do this, we're going to do it the right way, and that's okay if we have to spend extra money, or if they reject us, then I'll take that as God's will, that he doesn't want us to have a new air conditioner. Then also, it gave me some light on the same day that in Matthew chapter 5, I was just randomly reading the Sermon on the Mount, trying to go through the verses slowly, we've been given that good advice to go through the Bible slowly. Don't try to make some Guinness records by speeding through it and read it as many times, but go through it slowly and absorb it. And so I ran into verses 33 through 37 where Jesus is talking about making oaths before God. And he says, in verse 37, he says, let your yes be yes and your no be no. I don't think I've ever in my life, I've read this so many times, but I don't think I've ever taken anything practical from that, because I'm not a person who says, okay, God, I'm making you an oath right now. I'm going to do this. So it's never really been practical to me. But I felt like a stop sign when I got to that passage, like going to God and saying, Lord, what are you speaking to me through this? And I felt like he was confirming the whole situation with the air conditioner today, basically, or that I was going through. He was saying to me, the general application of this passage right here, let your yes be yes and your no be no, is be an upright person, have integrity, live with integrity and principle and stick to them, and do what's right, even if it takes a sacrifice to do it. And so like this person here, maybe people, it's almost implying that that most people, they're not serious about what they say. They don't care to live by principle unless they make an oath to do it. But here it's saying, live by principle, live with integrity, and let your yes be yes and your no be no. So it's like saying, if you're going to say something, do it. If you're going to say you're going to live by a principle, do it. Don't kind of argue with things. And so that was a good way that made this passage practical for me that I never saw before. That I see this passage now saying, Bobby, live with integrity. Even if you don't make oaths here and there, but stick to what you're going to say. If you're going to say you're going to live for God, live by it. Don't argue with it when he tells you to do something. And then I was also blessed with the verse in Proverbs 3:32 that says, God is intimate with the upright. If I live with integrity, then God will be intimate with me. He's intimate with all the folks who are willing to have something cost them so that they can do what's right. If I want to be intimate with God, I'll be willing to do what he says, especially when it costs me something. And so that's the path to intimacy, is denying myself for his will. And then I can be intimate with him. Another thing I saw that in this whole, I see it now as a test of the situation. Another thing I saw that's beautiful about God is that he's rooting for me to pass it. Just like a loving father would be. I don't think any loving parent ever hoped that their child would fail a test at school. I don't know if that's ever happened in history. Like, every parent hopes that their children succeed. And so it was just encouraging to see God kind of rooting for me and saying, you can do this. And not only that, but he's helping me. Like, he's giving me words and confirmations and encouragements. And it's almost like a loving father doesn't only root for the child, but he helps the child study the day before for the test. And so God's doing that for me. And in a sense, I think that's a good definition that could be one good definition of love is when you root for another person. For example, in marriage, it's very easy to not root for a spouse. Instead of rooting, maybe we're competing. We're competing with our spouses, or fighting with our spouses, or arguing. But love is when you root for your another person. Love is when you root for your spouse. Love is when you root for your brothers and sisters, not when you're hoping that some evil befalls your coworkers or your. I think only the devil and the demons hope that people fail. I don't want any type of spirit in that to hope that, I can't wait to see this person punished, or God's going to get them, like that type of thing. And so God's just encouraging me that he's rooting for me and he's helping me. And he's been doing this my whole life. He's been with me, rooting for me ever since the beginning. And I can look back and see my childhood, see how he placed situations and circumstances and people strategically in my life so that I'll seek for him and find him. And I'm so thankful. When I look back, it's so clear how he led me. And I ran into a passage that I thought was nice, that said how God is with us even from when we're children, leading us to this point where we're at today. And that's Hosea 11, 3 through 4. I'll read it. Hosea 11, 3-4 says, he's talking about Ephraim, part of Israel, who he considers his children. He said, "Yet it is I who taught Ephraim to walk. I took them in my arms, but they did not know that I healed them." It's like God saying, I was with you the whole time. I was planning for you. I was keeping you, but you didn't even see me. It's kind of like all the work that our parents do that we don't even remember because we were babies, like all the sleepless nights that our mother and father had taking care of us. It's hard for us to appreciate them because we don't remember them. There's no way we're going to remember when we were 6 months old screaming in the middle of the night. But they were sacrificing for us. And God was saying the same thing. I've been with you since the beginning. You didn't even see what I was doing. You don't even see it now, but I was with you. I was teaching you to, I took you in my arms. If you go on, it says, I led them with the cords of a man, with the bonds of love, and I became to them as one who lifts the yoke from their jaws, and I bent down and fed them. God was with us since the beginning, rooting for us, feeding us, teaching us to walk as a loving father. And so, I think I'm always blessed. I've been blessed more and more recently to just think back and remember all that God's done for me, and to think back specifically on certain times of my life. We have different seasons of life, and God was specifically had these different seasons so that we would be where we're at today, seeking for Him and finding Him, and living in victory over our sin, and drawing close to Him, living in intimacy with Him. And Psalm 143 verse 5 says, I remember the days of old, I meditate on all your doings, I muse on the works of your hands. Muse, I think, means think diligently. And so the way I see it is think diligently on what God has done for me in the past. Like, take some time and think about this. In this period of time from when I was 20 to 25, God was doing something. It was a really hard period of my life, but God was doing something amazing that I didn't see the purpose then, but I see much more of it now. And He was with me, teaching me, feeding me, teaching me to walk. And I didn't see it. I was just an ignorant baby who was receiving the love of a loving father without even expressing appreciation back. But when I look back, and like the psalm says, remember the days of old, I can think about what God did for me, and how He was always with me, rooting for me, encouraging me, teaching me how to ride a bike, and teaching me how to walk. And so I just leave that encouragement with you. I think probably everybody is in a test right now, and whatever the test is, just remember God's rooting for you, and He's holding your hand, walking you along.